Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football. It's up for grabs. It's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can find me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. He is Will Blackmon, and you can find him on NFL Game Day Live, Sundays on NFL Network, and on Twitter at Will Blackmon. So this might be my favorite NFL weekend, with two meaningful games on Saturday, two meaningful games on Sunday, and I don't know.
It's the playoffs.
It is the playoffs, yes. But I mean, it just, like, I feel the same way when it is... When you get to the second round of the playoffs in the NBA, I like having the games spread out. I like getting more than one day of games, but don't give me so many that I'm overwhelmed. This is like the perfect number for me.
You know what? I'm like flustered right now because there are some analysts like trying to find reasons why the Bears should have won other than trying to make the kick. I'm like, listen, I don't know. The D-line could have had more sacks or whatever. Offense could have scored more points. But at the end of the day, it came down to the kick. Right. So whatever happened before that kick doesn't even matter. Just make the kick. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
To get back to your point about about the games. What's really, really cool about the playoffs is that there isn't one clear-cut winner in this playoffs. I feel like anyone, before the games are played today, I can see any one of these teams making a run.
Oh, before all of them coming in, you thought they all had potential.
Yes, before the games are played, I can see how every single team had a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Interesting.
That's what made the playoffs really interesting for me. And then based on, I guess the biggest margin of victory was 14 points today. I mean, this weekend. Right. And that was the Colts Texans game.
Right. Yeah, and even though some of them, like the Chargers, for example, looked as if it was going to be a game that was not going to be close, clearly was at the very end. The Ravens gave themselves a chance. I do want to go through each one of these because, to your point, when you brought it up about the Bears and analysts struggling to come up with an explanation for why it happened and what should have happened different, I feel as if there was some of that in every instance. Like every game, there was a question. The Seahawks, Cowboys. Why didn't they use Russell Wilson more? Why didn't they cut him loose, as some people have said? Lamar Jackson, staying with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. Why didn't they go to the Joe Flacco? But let's start with that first game, the Colts and the Texans. And if I'm not mistaken, I know I thought that the Colts could pull off the upset. I want to say that you felt the same way. How did you feel going in?
I felt once the playoffs started, everything is fair game. I felt like the Colts definitely had just as much of an advantage as the Texans. But, yeah, they went in there, and it's funny, like you said, for the Chargers-Ravens game, same thing in the Colts game, the first half looked like it was going to be a rout. Right. And what the Colts did very well is that they knew that if they were running the ball well, they were going to go DeAndre Hopkins, and they took DeAndre out the game. A lot of the coverage they use what you call it cover six, and cover six is you play quarters to one side of the field, and you play cover two, like the two-man, pretty much to the single side receiver. And usually that's like DeAndre or Julio, whoever. And so essentially that single receiver is doubled. Right. That whole game.
What was the counter that the Texans could have or should have gone to? Because I've never seen Deshaun Watson and that team. I mean, as I looked at it, I'm like, okay, yeah, you take away DeAndre Hopkins, where else do they go? Lamar Miller wasn't getting it done, but I felt as if Deshaun was always able to manufacture things, and I didn't see that for long stretches against the Colts.
for him, he didn't have a lot of options. They completely took away the run game. He was, 29 out of 49 passes, which shows me he was extremely inaccurate. There were a lot of plays he should have made, and he threw a lot of bad footballs. And yeah, it came down to where they put it on him. Now, one thing I do respect about Deshaun Watson is that he really put the pedal to the metal, and he tried everything he could to win the game himself. He's like, I'm just going to screw it. I'm going to go do it.
Right. I saw a tweet by you in regard to, I don't know what time you put that tweet out there, but you had a tweet out there saying essentially Deshaun Watson is fearless. It was an admiring tweet about what Deshaun Watson was doing, which I didn't see until after the fact. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because ultimately the way the game turned out, it didn't turn out in Deshaun's favor. So what was it? At what point did you put that out there? What caught your attention?
Well, we talked about last time when, Blaine took over for Mariota, and they still had a chance to win. And just his body language, how he went in there, like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to try to do my job and see what happens. With Deshaun, they were still in it. They're only down 2 scores, and he literally, you can tell when a quarterback is going to try to take a game over, because if nobody's open, he's going to run it.
Right.
Like today, Phillip Rivers ran for a first down today.
Right.
He had a couple of good runs, because it's like, you know what? We need this game. So there are a lot of times where, okay, this guy's not open. I'm not going to throw a check down and then the guy gets tackled, or throw a check down, and if the football bobbles out of his hand, or if he fumbles. If we're going to lose, we're going to lose on my watch.
Right.
And that's what I respect about him.
With it being the most, lopsided result, I don't know if you would say it was the most dominant victory by the Colts. How much does, from what you saw of them, impact your view of what they can do, how far they can go? Okay, they're up against the Chiefs next. What kind of chance do you give them in that game as a result of what you saw on Saturday?
Well, if they play like they did in the first half, then they have a strong chance. If they come out the second half and come out flat and don't score any points, then they have issues. Because regardless what you do, Kansas City is going to score points.
Yeah,
they're going to put up at least 28 or 30.
I thought it was extraordinary to watch Andrew Luck dissect the Texans defense the way he did. And obviously some of that was he had a tremendous amount of time. He was not under duress. And it was one of the other things that I wanted to ask you about, because Booger McFarland, who was working the game for ESPN, at one point in the second quarter after J.J. Watt batted down a pass, said, that's all well and good, but he needs to be bringing pressure on Andrew Luck, and that's not happening. Neither he nor Clowney are putting pressure on Luck. And some people took that as a weird criticism, but in context with the Texans and what they do, I thought it was fair as far as saying, hey, look, if they're going to win this game, they've got to be able to get the Luck, and they hadn't been.
They didn't. There were 0 sacks.
Yeah.
And there were times where Jadeveon looks like he has a lot of freedom. If you watch the film, like he can jump inside, he gets one-on-one with the centers, and there were a lot of times where they would run to his side and he would jump inside of the wrong gap, and then they would just, run outside of him. But yet, huge credit to the O-line. They did a great job, because not only were they able to give him tons of time, but Marlon Mack had a hell of a game.
Yes.
24 carries for 148 yards and 1 touchdown, and a lot of his runs came in like crucial moments.
Yeah. And their defense. The Colts defense, I knew they had been good. I knew that they made their run, but I'm still struck in the big picture that they were able to put together a team as quickly as they did, that as many young players or new pieces improved as quickly as they did, and going from 1-5 to making the run that they have.
Yeah, well, one more point about the offense. Obviously a lot of attention was on T.Y., and he made huge catches in the game. But then you have isolations. Ebron was on Honey Badger a lot, and then Dontrell Inman, he had a lot of one-on-ones on his side, and he won those battles.
Right.
So everybody was winning their battles. Now, defensive-wise, I would give a lot of that credit to coaching, because how soon can you maximize your guys' potential? How soon can you get them to play? Everybody in the league, you're a professional football player. So it's an even playing field. It's just a matter of, how much you believe, how much chemistry you have, how much you think you can do something. Because a lot of guys, let's say, Odell shows up to the game. Odell already won half his battles because of who he is.
Yeah.
He just showed up, and everyone's like, oh, this is Odell. So he's going to do what he do. He's going to make his plays. Well, then It's those guys who don't care about that and who believe that they can make those plays. And I really feel like starting from the top down, where Chris Ballard, the GM, down to Frank Reich, down to the team, down to the entire coaching staff, that they're maximizing and getting everything out of these players. These players now, especially what they've been doing, they see it. That's all it comes down to.
The power of the mind. It's a powerful thing.
It's a crazy thing. I'm telling you.
When you have it collectively, certainly. How much do you know about Frank Reich? What is it do you think has made him? 'Cause obviously, this is his first turn as a head coach, and from the beginning, I liked the chemistry that I felt between he and Andrew Luck. I thought that was going to be a good combo, and then. It sounds simple, but the idea that, hey, you know what? Let's keep Andrew Luck upright. let's build an offensive line that's going to give him time and not try to exploit the fact that Andrew is built and can take a hit. Let's not have him take hits. But what is it about Frank? What do you know about him that has made him such a success so quickly with that team?
Well, touching on the O-line part, we talked about it earlier this year. It was a matter of not just like, of course, Andrew Luck was getting hit and was on the ground, and so was Jacoby Brissett. But it was how they were getting beat. They were getting embarrassed and bullied and pushed around and thrown. It wasn't like, okay, this guy got beat. They were getting embarrassed.
Right.
So they made it a point, and Chris Ballard would go back to his office and say, "Man, we are so soft." And he legit told me that on the phone back in October. And he made it a point, like, we're going to get this right. Unfortunately, they had a couple of first rounders, and then he went and got some studs. Obviously, Quentin Nelson is the standout. But I don't know much about Frank, but from what everyone says, even Chris Ballard, he's a stud, man. This guy is just an awesome coach, a wonderful person, inspiring motivator, and obviously knows how to call plays. And if you want to know anything about his mind, go to that comeback when he was in Buffalo versus the Oilers.
There you go. There you go.
That's everything right there.
Once you've experienced that, you can draw on that for the rest of your life in so many instances.
Right.
I look across the board, and it's an oversimplification, but 3 out of 4, and I would say even in the case of Seattle, they made it interesting there at the end. The difference between having maybe it is an oversimplification, and maybe it's not fair. I'll get your take on it. That the experienced quarterback, the quarterback who was not seeing this for the first time in any significant way, ended up being the difference. And I would even say that when it comes to Dak Prescott made a couple of important runs at the end of the game, but it was really Ezekiel Elliott and that running game to me that was the huge difference. And the fact that there was no kind of running game for Seattle and the Cowboys had it. But other than that, I look across the board and I look at the performances in the games and I just feel as if, having that quarterback that can manage, not even just making big plays, just manage the game from quarter to quarter, from possession to possession, was such a big influence in every single one of these games.
That's a really good point. What helped the Cowboys is sitting down Zeke and playing Dak in that final game. And I think what that did, not only obviously Zeke got his rest because he's going to be used a lot in the playoffs, but just having Dak play that game gave him tons of confidence on what he can do. Okay, this is what it looks like without the run game that I need.
Right.
That was my take on that. And the Cowboys, this has been their bread and butter the entire year. I tweeted a while ago. I says Zeke, he needs to have at least 26 to 28 touches, period. Because if he gets those many touches, he's gonna have over 100 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. He's gonna have over 30 yards receiving. Because in my opinion, I think he is the best running back, the most complete running back. And however he goes, that's how this offense goes. And that's exactly what happened. Anytime he gets the rock over 26 times, they pretty much win.
More complete than Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley.
I like Zeke.
Okay.
Those running backs are unreal, are unbelievable.
I just mean in terms of versatility. Because both of those guys can catch the ball too, and I don't know how much of Zeke not catching the ball has to do with Dak and their offense. And I'm not saying he can't, but I just haven't seen.
Zeke is outstanding. Zeke is outstanding out of the backfield. That's what made him an attractive running back, is that he can catch the ball. He's extremely athletic, and then I like his durability.
Okay, I don't see that. I don't see as much. I don't think it's featured as prominently with the Cowboys throwing the ball to him as for example with Le'Veon or Gurley. but that could have as much to do with scheming and the quarterback. And I know you're looking up the stats to see what it is. And I'm speaking anecdotally, I didn't look at the numbers. I just feel from watching the games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously McCaffrey is more prominent receiving running back.
Right.
Everyone else.
Okay. The second part is Russell Wilson, people question he didn't play a more prominent role, particularly as they were struggling to score. I looked at it and I'm thinking, this is the way they've played all year. This isn't that new. I mean, the most passes that he threw in a game, he was 18 for 27 in this game. I think there were 7 games during the year where he threw for more than that, sometimes just a couple of passes. I mean, this is the way that they've played all year. Do you have any issue with the fact that they didn't depart from their modus operandi for the entire season and go another direction here?
Well, what's interesting is that I'm sure Dallas knew that if they could knock out one of the best running games in the NFL, that their secondary, with their linebackers who can run all over the field and their defensive backs with their secondary, that they could nullify the passing game. Now, Seattle did make some plays. That's kind of Russell's thing is like, hey, he may not. I think he only had 3 completions like the first half. However, those are like 25-plus yard completions. But oddly enough, somebody knew Russell Wilson really well and knows Pete Carroll very well, and that was Chris Richard, who's getting interviewed right now, the passing coordinator and defensive back coach for the Cowboys. So he knew, hey, if I can knock this out, then this can be done. But it did, once again, I'm gonna go back to the offense. It helped that they were able to run the football. That's everything.
Yeah, 100%. We saw that in every game. We even saw it when it came to the Chargers game and Melvin Gordon not being able to be as effective as he normally is. And I feel like that tightened things up. In that game, there was another instance where people questioned that they stuck with Lamar Jackson. Now, ultimately, Lamar brought them back for a couple of late touchdowns, made some miraculous. Lamar Jackson, I thought he was back in Louisville. Those plays where he was just scrambling, making something out of nothing. But there was the question, you're that far behind, you've got to throw the ball. What do you make of the fact that they obviously never considered going to Flacco?
Because they already know that this is their guy. That's all that comes down to. This is their guy. There's no quarterback competition. This is their guy. Let's see how he handles adversity. Let's see him get himself out of the situation. Let's see what happens.
So this was as much a learning experience and a building block as anything else. Like, we're not going to take this away from Lamar because we figure, you know what, win or lose, we're going to be playing more playoff games with him and he's going to be our quarterback. So let's give him the opportunity to experience this now rather than pull the plug and say, and to that end, like, how much of a setback or a negative would it have been if they do want to go forward with Lamar, but in this instance, they said, you know what, we're going to go back to the cagey vet and let him finish this out or try to win it for us?
Yeah, it would have been completely wrong because when Joe Flacco got hurt, Lamar carried the load and got you guys there. And so you stay with that guy. That's who's done it for you. He's played him in game. He knows how to get it done. And you stay with that. Now it's interesting. I'm playing a little devil's advocate here. What if John Harbaugh did not have a ring? I feel like, he has a ring already. He won the Super Bowl. Maybe desperate measures come into play if he didn't have a ring yet. Maybe he does throw Joe in there, I don't know.
Or if they hadn't already announced that they were bringing him back. Because I think they'd already stated, like, at the end of the regular season, John's going to continue to be our head coach.
Well, his extension has not been signed yet, right?
I don't know.
That's what I heard. I heard his extension has not been signed yet. But yeah, that's just the right thing to do. Lamar has been great for the team since he's taken over. And then he proved it down the clutch, almost came back and then unfortunately got the strip sack. Really quick, Zeke is number 5 out of all running backs in receptions.
Okay.
With 77.
Who are the first 4?
Number 1 is Christian McCaffrey, of course. Yep. Saquon, James White, and Kamara.
Oh, wow. So Gurley is behind him.
Well, he did get hurt, so that has a lot to do with it.
And Le'Veon Bell never played, so.
So Zeke has 77 receptions. That's a lot.
That's a good number. That's more than I would have if you had asked me to guess. That's more than I would have guessed.
As the Russian champion, too, 77 catches. So, yeah, that's what I mean. He gets the ball, and they have success. So he has about 20 attempts a game rushing and about 6 targets. 26. I know football, man.
Never doubted that. Okay, so let's get to the last game of the 4. Unless there's more that you have when it comes to the Chargers and the Ravens.
I have something interesting.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that Gus Bradley decided to go with 7 defensive backs to stop the run. That's what's interesting. That's what's really cool. And I believe the reason he did that is because their run game is actually pretty explosive. Like, guys are fast. So what it is, their defensive backs, you look at, Derwin James, Desmond King, like those guys can tackle. Those guys can get off blocks. Those guys are physical. So if they're physical enough, then you don't have to go to a big boy package and those guys are getting ran by and all that stuff. So that's what they were able to do. And it was truly effective because then if they had to go to the pass game, they already had their guys out there.
Did you see the video of Melvin Gordon in the taxi cab in Baltimore?
I did.
Did you ever have an experience where someone didn't know who you played for or what you did and started having a conversation with you that either was talking trash or that they clearly didn't realize who they were talking to and you felt like if they knew, they wouldn't be talking this way?
No, well, I was out in Providence when I came back during the off season, and guys are weird. This one kid was challenging people to a race. This is like after a club, right?
Yeah.
So
okay.
We're outside. He challenges guys to a race.
We've all done that.
Yeah, just dumb stuff, right?
I ran down, and I was in San Diego. This is like, I'm fresh out of school. I'm in my first job. And I distinctly remember outside of the San Diego Sports Arena having a race with a guy who thought he was faster than I was. But anyway, and we had been out clubbing, so you can fill in the rest.
So everyone is, he's challenging people, and then so my friends are like, "Hey man, you should race this dude." He's like, him? He said, put 5 on it. He wants to bet me $5. He'll race me. And so I'm like, all right. Fortunately that night, I did have sneakers on. And then he kind of looked at me. We were getting ready to run. And he did like a triple take. He was like, wait. He said, you're a Blackmon, right? I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, hell no. I'm not racing, man. I was like, why not? I said, bro, you said you can run. You can race somebody or beat anybody out here. He's like, nah, no way, man. He said, you're in the NFL. I said, doesn't matter. So we raced.
You smoked him?
Yeah, I didn't take his money though.
Did you have wheels? I mean, was he close, or did you smoke him?
I got out on him pretty good, and then I started backpedaling.
Oh wow! You didn't just smoke him; you abused him. What? What distance?
It might have been like 50 meters.
Okay, 50 meters, not 40 yards. Like
50 meters. I had a good start.
You went metric on me all of a sudden.
Yeah, I did it because I was trying to imagine on the track.
Got it.
About 50 meters.
Got it. Would you run from like light pole to light pole?
No, there was like a street perpendicular to where it's like Thayer Street near Brown University. There's a street that's like perpendicular over there. No traffic, so we ran down that street.
And when was this? Where were you at this time?
I was in Green Bay.
Oh, okay. So let's get to the last game. I don't know if it's which game did you enjoy the most?
Obviously, the last one. I loved the last game between the Bears and the Eagles because it was 2 friends coaching each other. Mm-hmm. 2 friends, 2 really, really close friends who were on the Eagles together. And it was truly just a chess match. It was all situation football, especially when the Eagles made it to the red zone. It was like, what are you going to do? They got the first down the red zone. The Bears still had their timeouts. However, the Eagles were in position to score. So they gave the ball twice to Darren Sproles just to make sure that the Bears burned some timeouts.
Right.
And then everyone's like, okay, they have 2 plays to actually go score a touchdown.
Right. Yeah, at first it took me a second to realize, well, at first I was wondering, why are the Bears taking these timeouts? And then it was, because they're anticipating, I mean, it's a little bit weird, because they were basically anticipating that the Eagles were going to score and giving themselves, which when you think about the Bears defense, and the field goal wouldn't have done them any good, they were basically playing as if we anticipate that the Eagles are going to get in the end zone.
Well, you have to play it smart because you can't let the clock run all the way down.
Sure. No, I get it.
Right, yeah.
But you have to. Yeah. It was a weird psychological thing, and it did work.
It worked.
It worked to perfection. And I have to say, I have never seen even the Eagles looked like they felt bad about the way that game ended. Like, I didn't see any incredible celebration. It was more, I can't tell you the last time I saw a team win and it was more like relief. It was so mind-boggling. And for those that may not be aware, Cody Parkey, the field goal kicker, who this year has been phenomenal in hitting the uprights, had done it, I think, 5 times this season, maybe even more than that, at least 3 times in one game. I mean, we used to practice a thing from about 40, 50 yards out in soccer where you try to hit the crossbar. And I got pretty good where I could hit it. I could hit the crossbar square, I'd say maybe like 4 out of 10 times. But this was an attempt, hit the left upright, then hit the crossbar, and then bounced out. And that basically preserved the 16-15 win for the Eagles. Have you ever seen anything? Have you ever seen a game end more strangely than that?
Not to my recent memory, because right now this is the strangest game. I mean, yeah, it was tough. You know, it was tough to see. I can see why the Eagles didn't jump around celebrating. Once again, the team has been there before. Yeah, they were just happy that they iced the kicker and it worked and they moved on.
Speaking of which, let's stop with that. Let's stop.
No,
with that.
if you have the timeout, use especially when you're going against the kicker who is second for the most missed field goals. So if he has the second most missed field goals, he is mentally not ready.
There is no other part of the game where you make somebody do something twice for it to count. He drilled the first one. And to have it just, no, I hate it. I hate it, and I think it is unsportsmanlike. You don't do that in any other instance. Yes, I don't have a problem with calling a timeout, but calling a timeout.
Strategy.
Once you are into the kick,
the way you call a timeout.
Yes, in that instance, there should be a time limit in terms of when you can call the timeout. You want to call a timeout? You want to make him think about it a little bit more? Fine.
That's ridiculous. Get out of here.
No, what's ridiculous is making a guy do something twice when everybody else only has to do it once.
They call a timeout before the snap. They call the timeout before the snap. You can't call a timeout before the snap.
Yeah,
So you're saying if I'm the quarterback and the play clock is down to 1 second, I can't call a timeout?
No, you absolutely can call a timeout there.
So it's just calling a timeout before the snap.
If I'm the defense, I mean, it's the equivalent of calling timeout while the pass is in the air to the end zone. Caught? No, sorry, defense called timeout. You can't do it. Why are you allowed to do it in that instance, in that play?
If you look at the referee, the coach is standing right next to him.
Yes.
And once the dude puts his hands out before the snap, timeout. That's strategy.
No,
I don't want to hear that.
It's goofy. It's goofy.
It's not goofy.
To do that,
there are so many.
It's the only part of the game where you can utilize that weird strategy.
Listen, Cody signed a deal for $15 million. He better get it together and kick that ball. I don't want to hear nothing.
I'm not
the
putting
timeout. He got flustered. Get out of here with that.
I'm not putting it on the kicker.
Sometimes the practice kick is good.
It can be good. It can be bad. The fact of the matter is you're making one aspect of the game where somebody has to accomplish the feat twice. In no other part of the game do you have to do that. You don't have to sack a quarterback twice. You don't have to get to the end zone twice.
If there's a penalty on punt, you have to punt it twice. I think repunting is ridiculous. Because then you make those guys do a 70-yard sprint again.
It's not. You can't compare the two. I'm just saying, get rid of that.
What if they called a timeout? What if they called a timeout and he missed the first kick?
Then he deserved to miss it. Then he's missed a kick. But this is a case where he makes a kick, then he misses a kick.
Says the guy whose strategy is flopping soccer. The strategy is a fake.
Wait a minute. I think it has been incorporated into the football game as well. Flopping, feigning, interference.
And all right, let's go as Neymar.
That's happening in every sport now.
I got steps on my toe and I grab my knee. Really? And you lay there screaming in agony, looking to see if the ref is going to do something, and then nothing.
Yeah, but you know what? At least in soccer, you can now get a card. You can now get penalized for flopping. If they look and they see that you were penalized, that you flopped.
NBA, you get fined, right?
You can get a card. You can get a card. You can get ejected.
NBA, you get fined for flopping.
No, you know what? NBA hasn't held true to it. They brought it in, and then they haven't enforced it. They kind of made a joke out of it. Because there's guys that flop all the time, and they weren't imposing the rule. It was a good idea, but they got soft on it until somebody gets just outraged, and then they'll make a call or two. No, there was one I talked about it the other day where the Pelicans walked in. One of the Pelicans, Solomon Hill, walked into the Nets timeout, their huddle, and Ed Davis from the Nets put his forearm in Solomon Hill's chest to keep him from walking. They were still in their timeout in their huddle. Solomon Hill walks over there, starts walking into the huddle. Ed Davis turns around, puts his forearm out. Might have pushed him a little bit with the forearm. Solomon Hill goes down like he's just been hit by a sniper. Like he's just...
That's soccer right there. That's your sport.
That's right. Well, he did it, and the referees, not only did they call a tech, but they went back and looked at the replay, and they called a tech. And they gave free throws to the Pelicans. Ended up changing the dynamic of the game. It's insane. So
calling a timeout is strategy. Flopping, that's the worst strategy. So I don't want to hear it. Calling a timeout is good. That's good.
No.
I like it.
No.
I like it because it works. It works. If you have a timeout sitting right there, you use it.
Flopping works too. If it's just a matter of what works, flopping works.
You think these guys snapped their leg in half? They're rolling around, screaming in agony. I never once in my life, of all the injuries I had, screamed in agony. Ever. I played football from 6 years old to the age of 34. I never screamed in agony. Okay. And then got up and continued to sprint down the field. You see these guys come in. You see these soccer guys come in with the cold spray and all this stuff.
No. We would call it the magic sponge.
Yeah, I love soccer, but
it is not. I would say it is not as prevalent as it used to be. But you trying to equate flopping, trying to bring flopping in, comparing that to calling a timeout right before a guy takes a kick. It's not so. It's cheap. Let the game be played.
Are there timeouts in soccer? Are there timeouts in soccer?
No.
There's just stoppage.
No, we don't play with time. We don't play with timeouts. We run. We play. There's no. There's no. I need a breather. Or
what you guys do is you guys celebrate. You guys celebrate so long, so you get stoppage time.
Coach subs me out. You know what's funny is I see guys celebrate. They're running harder than they do in the game. I would save that energy. I'm not going to go that crazy.
No, but that's the highlight. Though. You're going to be on TV if you celebrate in soccer.
Ideally, you're on TV. Ideally, you're on TV. Put the ball in the back of the net.
That when they show the highlight.
I don't know how we got here. All right, so let's get back to Bears-Eagles. It's funny because the Eagle and Foles hit, what was it, Alshon with the deciding touchdown?
Golden Tate,
that's right. After Alshon didn't catch the one that could have been the first on third down. I jumped up, I yelled, and my family was like, what are you so excited about? And so I said, well, number one, I told them the whole Nick Foles story, because that's really why I was excited. The Nick Foles story, to me, and the Eagles moving on. I just love it. I'm not an Eagles fan per se, but I'm a fan of the Nick Foles continuing saga. And the fact that he was able to pull this out, and they were able to pull this out against that number one defense. Man, and they came out and moved the ball right down the field. That was impressive. I'm
listening to you. You're emotional right now. I'm listening to you.
How do you explain their ability to do what they did against the Bears? And obviously, they finished with 16 points to the Bears, but I thought they did it. Khalil Mack, you didn't hear his name a whole lot all day long
at all. Some emotion on a conversion.
They ran the ball effectively at times. It seemed like every time they needed a run, they were able to get it. And Foles was able to, I think he threw some guys open today. It wasn't just that he's got the big arm and everything else. I thought he made some choice throws where he was throwing it before the guy went into his break, and he put it in the perfect location.
The one Nick Foles, he's extremely zen, but he truly understands what the offense is asking of him, and he has obviously a great game planner and a great play caller in Doug Pederson. But it goes back to, he ran the same stuff and was very successful with Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
And then you bring it over here, and he's doing the same thing over here. He understands where everybody is. He understands where everyone's supposed to be. He understands there's a lot of cases where, okay, I have some big receivers, so he kept throwing high balls on purpose so they can go up and play basketball and go get it.
Right.
To your point, throwing guys open.
Foles, after the Chip Kelly, put up phenomenal numbers. And it wasn't only that Chip Kelly moved on from Nick Foles in spite of that, but there wasn't a whole lot of interest in him around the league. It wasn't like everybody was jumping to get Nick Foles. Why did all that happen? Why did Chip Kelly fall out of love with Foles in spite of the phenomenal numbers that he put up? And why did it not impress more of the league once he was available?
I think it was kind of maybe because you don't know what you're going to get. It's like, oh, this happened. This was, I guess a lot of people didn't go after Nick Foles as maybe they thought that was just like a phase with that offense. We don't run the same system. Maybe that's not what he can do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe that was the case.
It was odd to me. I mean, I looked at it. That's what I felt. I felt like Foles at the time was a product of Chip Kelly's system, more so than what we see him now as, which I'm just impressed to no end. The guys that could kind of wait in the wings, and yet you ask them to step up, and they step up. And even when he threw the pick in the end zone, he wasn't rattled. It was, I think he underthrew it. I think he thought if I throw it to the back of the end zone, Aguilar has a chance on it, and he underthrew it, and that turned into a pick.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a stretch his second year with Chip Kelly. He played 8 games, and he didn't have a high completion percentage.
Right.
I think the year before he was like 65%, but in this case he was in the 50s.
TD to INT
right, he was 27-2
through the roof.
He's 27-2, but he had 10 picks in next year, and then when he went to he went to St. Louis and played 11 games there, and did not do well there. He threw for like 56%, and he had 7 TDs to 10 picks. And then I think what happened was when he went to Kansas City, he kind of revived himself in the few games that in the one game he played. I think he played in it. Yeah, one game he played. He threw 410, 3 TDs, something like that.
Yeah,
that's kind of what did it.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the WeCast, United WeCast network. Don't forget to follow Will on Twitter at Will Blackmon, and me at Rick Bucher, and you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. I want to thank all of you who have dropped us a rating and reviewed us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep in mind, if you screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, you'll be entered to win some free stuff from us. In tomorrow's podcast, we'll review the championship game between Alabama and Clemson, and we'll get into who we see moving on in the next matchups. Can the Chargers go into Foxborough? I mean, that to me is probably at the top of the list, because right now I've got Saints-Chargers in the Super Bowl. I'd like to see that a reality. The one thing I don't want to see the Patriots. I'm done. I've had my fill.
Would you like to see an all LA Super Bowl?
I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I'm open to almost anything
but New England.
And I prefer 2 veteran quarterbacks. Like, I'm not ready to see Mahomes in the Super Bowl. We can discuss that.
Let's end this. My gosh. Such an old man. Just an old man.
Wait, you thought that was that's a grumpy statement?
That is a grumpy statement.
You know what? I'll explain it further in the next podcast, why it's not a grumpy statement. Why it's simply, I want quality for my time spent watching the Super Bowl. All right, that's it for me. and Will. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.